I used to believe every decision deserved my full attention. Every choice, big or small, felt like a doorway I could never reopen once I stepped through. So I stood there, hand on the handle, holding my breath and trying to see the whole future before I took a single step. Morning light on stainless steel, office kitchen humming, a cup of coffee that had long forgotten what warmth tasted like. That's where it hit me. I had spent an entire week arguing with myself about the color of a single button on our website. A week for a shade of gray, as if that tiny square were the hinges of destiny. And the strange part? The feature itself was a trial run, a quick test we could put out in the morning and roll back by lunch. Meanwhile, a far more serious choice, next year's pricing, sat on my desk like unopened mail, gathering dust and quiet consequences. That's when I saw the absurd picture. There I was, rearranging deck chairs while the ship's wheel stood waiting. Busy, tired, productive on paper, but inside I knew I was hiding from the choice that actually mattered. No fireworks, no speech, just a small, honest sound in my chest. The soft click of a latch sliding home. I whispered to myself, almost like a confession. Not all doors are built the same. Some decisions don't change the room you live in. Some do. And I had been treating them all like they carried the same weight, the same risk, the same demand for perfection. I looked down at that cold cup, felt the ache in my shoulders, and let the truth settle. I wasn't exhausted because I had too many choices. I was exhausted because I kept giving small choices the posture and pressure of big ones. That morning I made a quiet promise. I would stop standing frozen in every doorway. I would learn the rhythm of moving when movement was safe, and breathing when the road ahead would shape the years. You know, once you admit that simple distinction, the hallway of life changes. The lights feel warmer. The echoes calm down. You begin to sense which handles turn easily and which ones ask for a slower, steadier hand. I rinsed the cup, watched the last pale swirl of coffee disappear, and walked back to my desk with a lighter step. The button could wait for a simple human choice. The price change would get my full, patient attention, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't fighting decisions. I was guiding them. Later that week, something unexpected happened. While scrolling through a few old interviews, I stumbled upon a simple idea that felt like it had been waiting for me all along. It said this: some choices in life are like one-way doors. Once you walk through them, they close behind you. Others are two-way doors. You can step inside, look around, and if it doesn't feel right, you can walk right back out. And I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, whispering, "That's it. That's the label I'd been missing for years." You see, most of us treat every decision like a one-way door. Final, heavy, irreversible. We hesitate, we overthink, we wait for perfect timing, perfect data, perfect certainty. And while we wait, life quietly moves on without us. The irony, it's rarely the decision that drains us, it's the hesitation. It's standing too long in the doorway, thinking we're being careful when really we're just afraid. That week I began to see this pattern everywhere. In meetings, in conversations, in my own thoughts. People would freeze over small things, colors, layouts, minor plans, while the truly important questions sat untouched. We were polishing doorknobs while the real door remained closed. One morning I decided to test the new idea. We were designing a small feature, something that could easily be changed or even deleted later. Normally, I would have scheduled a whole string of meetings, sent out long emails, tried to gather every opinion in the building, but not this time. I said, let's decide within 24 hours. If it doesn't work, we'll change it. That's all. And you could feel it. The room exhaled. People smiled. The tension, that quiet hum of fear that usually fills the space when someone says decision, simply disappeared. Because now we weren't trying to be perfect. We were allowed to be human. To try, to learn, to adjust. And something shifted. The work felt alive again, faster, kinder, even joyful. But a few days later, another decision arrived, one that truly mattered. Our annual pricing strategy. And when the document landed on my desk, I felt that old familiar knot tighten in my stomach. This was no two-way door. Once we changed prices, we couldn't just roll them back without breaking trust. So we slowed down. We gathered data, we spoke to customers, we mapped the risks, we moved with patience, not fear. Same week, same office, same coffee machine humming in the corner, but this time I could feel the rhythm. Some doors you walk through lightly, others you study before you enter. That simple awareness changed everything. Work stopped being a blur of decisions. It became a dance, a steady rhythm of when to step fast and when to step slow. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was no longer drowning in choices. I was swimming in them. That evening, I sat at home, still thinking about those doors. The house was quiet. Outside, a soft rain tapped against the windows. That kind of slow rhythm that makes you reflective without trying. And as I stood in front of the fridge, debating between pasta and leftovers, my wife laughed from across the kitchen. "Are you overanalyzing dinner again?" she said with a grin. "Maybe," I answered, half smiling. "Just trying to pick the right door." She shook her head. "It's just food, not a life decision." And that's when I realized how deep the habit went. Even something as small as dinner had turned into a performance of perfection. But she was right. That was a 2-minute reversible choice. I could mess up the recipe today and make something better tomorrow. But when it came to things that lasted, buying a car, choosing where to live, deciding how to raise a child, those were the doors that deserved stillness, patience, and care. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I had been living as if every door were made of stone, when most were made of wood. They could open, they could close, they could be repainted, replaced, or left ajar. And something in that truth softened me. Life didn't feel like a maze anymore. It felt like a hallway I could actually walk through, calmly, curiously, one door at a time. The following week, I brought this new mindset back to work. It started small, saying yes to quick tests, trying ideas without endless debate. We experimented, made tiny adjustments, and for the first time, people weren't afraid to fail. The room felt lighter. Meetings were shorter. Decisions had movement again. Then, one afternoon, an old colleague stopped by my desk and said, "You've changed lately. You don't seem as tense." I smiled. "Maybe I just stopped treating every door like the last one I'll ever walk through," he laughed. "That's a good way to put it." And it was. Because the moment you stop fearing the act of choosing, you start enjoying the act of living. The pace of everything around me began to shift. Emails lost their urgency. Mistakes lost their sting. And even deadlines started feeling like what they really were. Invitations to move, not punishments for hesitation. That night, as I turned off the lights in the office, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time, I saw a man who wasn't weighed down by choices, but carried by them. Quietly, deliberately, one open door at a time. A few months later, I joined a small nonprofit project. We were redesigning a community program meant to help local families. The team was full of heart, passionate, kind, dedicated. But we were stuck. Every meeting circled the same question. Do we rebuild the whole program from scratch? Or do we start small and test a pilot first? Voices went back and forth for weeks. Some people feared wasting time on a small test. Others were terrified of failing big if we jumped too fast. I could feel the room tightening, the same invisible tension that once lived in my own chest, that fear of making the wrong move. And then, almost without thinking, I said, let's open a small door first. Just one. Let's test a version of this program we can step into and back out of if it doesn't work. The room went quiet. Then something changed. People leaned forward. You could see the relief spread across their faces, because now we weren't standing at the edge of a cliff. We were just opening a door. We ran the pilot. It was simple, humble, imperfect, but it worked. Families responded with warmth. Volunteers felt engaged again. And when we finally expanded the full program months later, it didn't feel like a leap into the unknown. It felt like walking confidently through a door we'd already tested. That moment stayed with me, because it wasn't about the success of the project. It was about the peace that came with moving forward. That same peace I'd been searching for all my life. You see, once you start thinking this way, once you begin to see doors instead of walls, your whole sense of control changes. You stop clinging so tightly to perfection. You stop needing to predict the entire journey before taking the first step. And strangely enough, you start trusting yourself again. That's when I realized something deeper. Most of us aren't afraid of making decisions. We're afraid of losing faith in ourselves after making them. But when you know which choices can be undone, you set yourself free from that fear. You stop expecting yourself to be flawless. You start allowing yourself to be human. And the beautiful paradox? That's when your choices actually become wiser. Because your mind is no longer clouded by panic, it's guided by clarity. From that day forward, every decision, at work, at home, even in conversations, felt different. I could sense when to move quickly and when to pause, when to trust my instinct and when to seek counsel. It wasn't a strategy anymore, it was a rhythm. The rhythm of doors. Some open easily, some ask for stillness, but all of them invite movement. And movement, I've learned, is where peace begins. One night, I sat on the porch with our dog sleeping at my feet. The streetlights hummed softly, casting long golden streaks across the wet pavement. And somewhere between the sound of crickets and the distant rush of cars, I found myself thinking about how this simple idea, doors, choices, rhythm, had started changing not just my work, but my peace of mind. Because here's the quiet truth. Every worry we carry is just a decision in disguise. We replay the same thoughts, The what-ifs, the maybes, the not-yets, thinking we're being careful. But really, we're just circling the same door, too scared to knock. That night, I asked myself one simple question. What if instead of overthinking, I just asked, can I undo this? If the answer was yes, I'd move. If the answer was no, I'd breathe. Not panic, not freeze, just breathe. And you know what? That question alone began to quiet the noise in my head. Because most of the things I worried about, an email I hadn't sent, a conversation I hadn't finished, a task I hadn't done perfectly, were all doors I could step back through. The heaviness wasn't in the decision itself. It was in pretending that every door was permanent. That's what decision fatigue really is. It's not about how many choices we face. It's about treating them all as if they carry the same weight. When everything feels critical, your mind burns out. But when you learn to tell the difference, when you can whisper to yourself, this one matters, that one doesn't, clarity returns. The fog lifts. And you realize something gentle and freeing. You don't need more courage. You just need better categories. I remember closing my eyes, listening to the night breathe around me, and feeling a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. Not because everything was solved, it wasn't, but because I finally understood that life isn't asking us to be perfect decision makers. It's asking us to keep walking, to keep turning the handles that open our way forward. That night I went to bed lighter than I'd been in a long time. And as I drifted off, one thought kept echoing quietly in my mind. It's not the number of doors that exhausts us. It's standing in front of all of them at once. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calmness. That kind of quiet you feel when something inside you is finally settled into place. And as I got ready for work, brushing my teeth, pouring coffee, tying my shoes, I realized that this idea of knowing your doors could be more than a mindset. It could be a practice, something I could carry with me every single day. So I tried something simple. Before I opened my laptop, I looked at the list of things waiting for me. Emails, meetings, half-finished tasks. And instead of asking, what's most urgent, I asked, which of these can I undo? If it was a small choice, reversible, harmless, I acted fast. No second guessing, no perfection, just movement. If it was a deep choice, something that would shape trust, money, or the people around me, I gave it breath. I slowed down, listened more, asked questions, slept on it. And almost instantly, something remarkable happened. The noise faded. My mind, once cluttered with 10 open loops, started to clear. Because not everything was shouting for my attention anymore. The small things could simply move. The big things could take their time. It was like sorting the music of life into melody and rhythm, knowing which notes to play quickly and which ones to let linger. I began sharing this little practice with others. In our meetings, I'd ask, is this something we can test and reverse, or something we'll live with for years? And it changed the way we spoke. People stopped defending their ideas like fortresses and started exploring them like paths. The energy in the room softened. Decisions turned from battles into conversations. And that, to me, was the real beauty of it all. Once you name the kind of door you're opening, fear loses its grip. You stop obsessing over being right. You start focusing on learning. Because every small reversible choice is like a practice round for the bigger ones. Every fast step through an easy door builds the muscle you'll need when the heavy ones appear. That's when I understood something I wish I'd learned much earlier in life. Speed builds confidence. Reflection builds wisdom. And the art of living well is knowing which door deserves which. A few weeks later, that lesson was tested in the most ordinary way. A young manager on our team came to me, eyes tired, voice tight. She said, "I feel like I'm drowning. Every little decision feels enormous. I rewrite emails 10 times. I change plans 3 times. I can't rest because I'm always afraid of choosing wrong." I knew that feeling too well. I'd lived inside it for years. That quiet pressure to be flawless, the fear that one misstep would unravel everything. So I told her what I'd started practicing myself. "Let's make a deal," I said. "Every Monday, send me a few of your small decisions, the ones that won't break anything if they go wrong, and give yourself a single day to act on each." She looked uncertain, but she agreed, and within a week I noticed a change. Her shoulders weren't as tense. Her tone had a bit more air in it, a little laughter between words. She was deciding faster, and somehow better. 3 weeks later, she came to my desk and said something I'll never forget. "I didn't know peace could come from labeling things." I smiled. It always does. See, peace doesn't come from solving everything. It comes from knowing what needs your full heart and what doesn't. From realizing that not every choice deserves the same weight on your soul. Some doors ask for courage. Some just ask for a small, confident step forward. The problem is, we treat all of them like they're the same. We stand frozen in front of a dozen doors, trying to peek through them all at once, hoping to find a version of the future with no mistakes in it. But life doesn't work that way. You can't see the whole hallway before you start walking. You just choose one door, open it, and trust yourself enough to learn from whatever's on the other side. And here's what I told her that day, and what I keep telling myself. The real mistake isn't in choosing wrong. The real mistake is in never choosing at all, because standing still doesn't protect you, it only drains you. It keeps your feet cold and your heart waiting. So I told her, move. Even a small step is better than a perfect plan that never begins. She laughed softly, and I could see right then she was already lighter, already walking toward her next door. Now, I won't pretend this little philosophy solves everything. Life isn't a neat hallway where every door behaves the way you expect it to. Some doors you think are reversible slam shut behind you. Others you were sure were locked forever open again years later, softly, quietly, when you least expect it. Life has a way of surprising us with mercy. And that's what makes this practice so human. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about learning to meet each decision as it comes, with curiosity instead of fear. Because when you live this way, something beautiful happens. You stop measuring your worth by how right you are, and start valuing how honest you can be. You stop treating mistakes as verdicts and begin to see them as teachers. You stop carrying the weight of every door you didn't open. The real power of decision triage isn't in being precise, it's in being awake. It teaches you to live with intent, not panic. To understand that motion, even imperfect motion, is what keeps your heart alive. When you stop demanding certainty from life, you finally begin to trust yourself in the middle of it. That's when peace arrives, not as a reward, but as a quiet companion walking beside you. Because here's what I've learned. Peace doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from knowing what's worth getting right. It comes from saying, this choice deserves my full presence. That one can flow. And the more you practice that awareness, the lighter you become. The noise fades. You stop trying to fix the future and start living inside the moment you're actually in. If you've ever felt stuck between options, career, family, love, the next step in your life, remember this gentle truth. You can't control how every door will open. You can only control how long you stand outside, waiting. Sometimes the courage isn't in walking through. It's in trusting that whatever waits inside, you'll find a way to grow through it. So don't wait for perfect. Don't wait for every light to turn green. Just take one honest step. The rest will reveal itself, one door at a time. Weeks later, I found myself back where it all began. The same office kitchen, the same coffee machine humming softly in the corner. I poured a cup, leaned on the counter, and thought about that first morning when everything started to shift. The gray button on the screen, the cold coffee, the quiet realization that I'd been wasting whole days trying to make perfect what never needed to be. If I could speak to that version of myself again, the one who stood frozen at every door, I'd say this: don't be afraid to walk through the easy ones. They'll teach you how to face the hard ones, because every day gives us both kinds. Some doors open with a light push, no risk, just movement. Others make you pause, listen, and steady your breath before you turn the handle. The secret is not to remove the weight, but to place it where it belongs. When you start doing that, life changes in subtle, powerful ways. You begin to sense which moments deserve a pause and which deserve momentum. You stop trying to control every outcome. You start trusting yourself to respond. And that trust, that small, steady faith in your own ability to learn, adjust, and move, it's worth more than any plan or guarantee. Because the truth is, peace never comes from certainty. It comes from alignment, from knowing that your actions match your values, your choices match your season, and your pace matches your purpose. As I stood there that day, I noticed something simple. The hum of the fridge, the click of the light, the soft warmth of the cup in my hand. The world hadn't changed. I had. I was no longer the man who feared choices. I was the man who made them with grace. And that, I realized, was freedom. Not the absence of risk, but the quiet confidence that whatever happens next, I'll meet it fully, one decision at a time. You know, sometimes the biggest change in your life doesn't come from crossing a huge threshold. It comes from learning how to open small doors without fear. Because once you do, the big ones stop looking so impossible. So, tonight, if you find yourself standing before a decision, maybe at work, maybe at home, maybe just inside your own thoughts, take a breath. Ask yourself gently, does this door open both ways? If it does, don't wait another second. Step through. If it doesn't, slow down. Steady your heart and enter with care. Either way, you're moving, and movement, even quiet, humble, uncertain movement, is how life opens. As I walked home that evening, the sun was sinking low, the kind of warm golden light that makes even the quiet streets feel alive. People were heading home, porch lights flickering on, the world settling into its gentle rhythm. And I found myself thinking about how simple life becomes when you stop trying to solve it all at once. We spend so much time chasing certainty, thinking peace will come when everything is decided, every box checked, every path mapped out. But peace doesn't wait at the end of the road. It lives in the steps we take while we're still unsure. That night, our dog tugged at the leash, eager to chase a drifting leaf, and I laughed out loud Because somehow, in that tiny, ordinary moment, the whole lesson made sense. You don't need to see every door ahead. You just need to trust the next one. And when you do, when you walk through even a small door with presence and heart, life meets you halfway. The right people appear, the right answers unfold. The fear begins to fade. I looked up at the stars just starting to show through the blue and whispered to myself, keep moving, keep learning, keep choosing, because that's all life ever asks of us. Not perfection, not proof, just participation. And as I turned the corner toward home, I felt that quiet warmth again, the kind that tells you deep down you're walking the right way. Later that night, long after the house had gone still, I sat by the window with the lights off. Outside, the moon hung low over the rooftops, quiet and full. I could hear the faint hum of the city, distant cars, a dog barking somewhere far away, a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. And I thought about how many years I had spent afraid of choosing, afraid of the wrong step, the wrong turn, the wrong door. All that time I thought I was protecting myself from regret, but really, I was just postponing life. Because every door we walk through, even the wrong ones, teaches us something we couldn't have learned standing still. Every mistake carries a small truth inside it, a lesson whispered in the language of experience. And the doors we fear most are often the ones that lead to our deepest peace. I've come to believe that life isn't about picking the perfect path. It's about trusting yourself enough to walk the one you're on, and knowing that no matter what's behind each door, you'll find a way to make meaning from it. Some doors open to laughter, some to loss, some to long nights of quiet rebuilding. But each one, in its own way, makes us more whole. So if you find yourself tonight standing before a choice, big or small, I want you to remember this. You don't have to know everything before you move. You just have to know this moment deserves your courage. Take the step, turn the handle, walk through with heart. Because even if the door closes behind you, it will never lock you out of your own becoming. And one day, when you look back, from some warm porch, some quiet evening, you'll see that every choice, even the uncertain ones, were never obstacles. They were invitations. Invitations to grow, to learn, to live. And that, my friend, is all life ever asks.